The night was cold and quiet on the outskirts of Greenfield, a small town nestled between rolling hills and dense forests. Jack, a farmer in his mid-30s with calloused hands and weary eyes, had just finished checking the last of his cattle for the evening. As he walked back to his old pickup truck, something caught his attention, a faint glow coming from the edge of the woods. Curiosity tugged at him, but caution whispered louder. Still, he grabbed the flashlight from his belt loop and approached the source of the light. What he found changed everything. A figure lay sprawled on the forest floor, her body shimmering faintly as if lit by an invisible moon. She wasn't human, or at least not entirely. Her skin glowed softly, like starlight stretched over flesh, and her hair seemed to ripple as though it were made of liquid silver. But what struck Jack most were her eyes, wide, frightened, and unmistakably intelligent. "Who are you?" she asked in halting English, her voice melodic yet strange. Jack froze, his heart pounding. He'd heard stories about UFO sightings around these parts, but he never believed them. Now, staring into those otherworldly eyes, disbelief crumbled away. "I'm Jack," he said finally, lowering the flashlight. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head slowly, sitting up with effort. "No hurt. Just lost." Lost? That didn't make sense. How could someone, or something, like her get lost? Before he could ask more, she reached out a trembling hand toward him. Her touch was cool, almost soothing, but there was desperation in her gaze. "You must help me," she said urgently. "I need a child." Jack stumbled backward, nearly dropping the flashlight. "What? No, wait, that's insane." But she didn't relent. Instead, she stood, her movements graceful and deliberate. "It is my only way," she insisted. "To become whole. To have a soul." "A soul?" Jack echoed, confusion mixing with unease. "You think having a kid will give you a soul?" "Yes," she replied firmly. "In your legends, life gives meaning. A child binds one to existence. Without this, I am empty." Jack wanted to laugh, to dismiss her words as nonsense, but the conviction in her voice stopped him. There was something raw and deeply sad about her, as though she carried the weight of centuries on her shoulders. "And why me?" he demanded, crossing his arms defensively. "Why come here, to some random guy in the middle of nowhere?" Her shimmering form flickered slightly, as if she were struggling to maintain it. "Because you are kind," she said simply. "I saw it when you looked at me, not fear, not anger, but kindness. That is rare among your kind." Jack sighed heavily, running a hand through his messy brown hair. This was too much. Too weird. Too impossible. And yet, looking at her, he couldn't bring himself to walk away. "Look," he began, trying to sound reasonable. "Even if I wanted to help, which I don't know how. You're not exactly human." "I can adapt," she said quickly. "I can learn. I will do whatever it takes." Her determination unnerved him. It wasn't just desperation. It was resolve stronger than anything he'd ever seen. For a moment, he wondered if saying no would haunt him forever. "Fine," he muttered reluctantly. "For now, you can stay at my place until we figure this out. But no funny business, okay? I mean it." Relief washed over her face, softening her features. "Thank you, Jack. I promise you will not regret this." As they made their way back to his truck, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just taken a turn into uncharted territory. Little did he know, this was only the beginning. Jack's small farmhouse sat at the end of a dirt road, surrounded by fields that stretched endlessly under the pale light of dawn. It wasn't much, just 2 bedrooms, a creaky wooden porch, and a kitchen that smelled faintly of coffee, but it felt like home. Or at least, it used to. Now, as Jack unlocked the front door and ushered the alien woman inside, everything seemed different. She moved cautiously, her glowing form dimming slightly as if trying to blend in with the shadows. Her wide eyes scanned every corner of the room, taking in the worn furniture, the dusty shelves lined with books, and the faded photographs on the walls. This is where you live? She asked, her voice tinged with wonder. Yeah, Jack replied gruffly, setting his keys on the counter. Not exactly a palace, but it gets the job done. It is beautiful, she said softly, running her fingers along the edge of an old oak table. It feels alive. Jack snorted. Alive? Nah, just old. Like me. She turned to look at him, tilting her head slightly. You are not old, Jack. You have time left. Time to give. He shifted uncomfortably, avoiding her gaze. Look, let's focus on one thing at a time here. First off, we need to figure out what to call you. I can't keep calling you alien woman. She hesitated for a moment before answering. My kind do not have names as yours do. We are known by our purpose, our essence. But if you wish, you may name me. Name you? Jack echoed, scratching the back of his neck. I'm no good at that sort of thing. Then choose something simple, she suggested. Something that fits. After a long pause, Jack shrugged. How about Lily? You know, like the flower. Pure, delicate, but strong too. A smile spread across her face, lighting it up in a way that made Jack's chest tighten unexpectedly. Lily, she repeated, testing the sound. I like it. Thank you, Jack. Well, don't thank me yet, he muttered, grabbing a blanket from the couch. You can sleep here tonight. Tomorrow, we'll figure out what to do next. But sleep didn't come easily for either of them. While Lily curled up on the couch, her glow dimmed to a faint shimmer, Jack lay awake in his bed, staring at the cracked ceiling. His mind raced with questions he couldn't answer. Who or what was she really? Why had she chosen him? And most importantly, could he trust her? The next morning brought little clarity. Over breakfast, a hastily prepared plate of scrambled eggs and toast, Lily explained more about herself. My people, she began, her voice steady despite the weight of her words, are bound by purpose. Each of us serves a role, a function within the greater whole. But I was born without one. Born without a purpose? Jack interrupted, frowning. That sounds rough. It is worse than you imagine, she admitted, her luminous eyes clouding with sadness. Without purpose, I am incomplete. Empty. My kind see me as broken, less than nothing. For years I wandered among them, searching for meaning, but none would accept me. Jack listened silently, stirring his coffee absent-mindedly. He couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy for her. In some ways, her story mirrored his own, years spent feeling like he didn't belong, stuck in a life that felt meaningless after the death of his wife 5 years ago. So why Earth? He asked finally. Why come here? I heard stories, Lily explained. Legends of your species, how creating life gives you purpose. How bearing a child connects you to something greater. I thought, perhaps this could be my answer. Jack sighed, rubbing his temples. You're asking a lot, Lily. Having a kid isn't some magical fix-all. It's hard work, messy, painful. Hell, half the time, I don't even know what I'm doing. But you have done it before, she pressed gently. You understand the bond. That is why I chose you, Jack. You already carry the weight of loss. You know what it means to love deeply. Her words hit a nerve, dredging up memories he tried so hard to bury. The laughter of his late wife, the warmth of holding his newborn son, the crushing grief when they were both taken from him in a car accident. Tears pricked at the corners of his eyes, and he quickly looked away. Even if I wanted to help, he said hoarsely, it's not that simple. People don't just decide to have kids because someone asks them to. There's biology, ethics, all sorts of complications. I am aware, Lily replied calmly. But I believe it is possible. Together, we can find a way. Her confidence unnerved him. She spoke as though failure wasn't an option, as though sheer willpower alone could bend reality to her desires. And maybe that scared him because deep down, he admired it. He hadn't felt such determination in years, not since losing his family. 4 days, they lived together in uneasy harmony. Jack taught Lily the basics of human life, how to cook, clean, and navigate the world outside his farmhouse. She soaked up knowledge like a sponge, her curiosity insatiable. Yet beneath her eagerness lurked a quiet desperation, a ticking clock that neither of them dared acknowledge. One evening, as they sat side by side on the porch watching the sunset, Jack broached the subject again. "You realize this isn't going to be easy, right?" he said, breaking the silence. "Even if we somehow manage to make this happen, there's no guarantee it'll give you what you want. What if it doesn't work? What then?" Lily turned to him, her expression resolute. "Then I will try again. And again. Until I succeed or cease to exist." Her conviction sent a chill down his spine. For the first time, he truly understood the depth of her resolve, and the danger it posed. If she wouldn't stop, then neither could he. Not if he wanted to protect her. Protect them both. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Jack made a decision. Whether it was driven by compassion, guilt, or something else entirely, he couldn't say. All he knew was that he couldn't turn her away. "All right, Lily," he said quietly. "We'll try. But you have to promise me one thing." "What is it?" she asked, leaning closer. "That you won't hurt anyone. Not yourself, not me, not anyone else. Deal?" Her smile returned brighter than ever. "Deal." And with that, their journey began. The days that followed were a blur of uncertainty and discovery. Jack found himself caught between two worlds, the familiar rhythms of farm life and the surreal reality of sharing his home with Lily, an alien determined to rewrite the rules of existence. Every morning began with a quiet tension, a shared understanding that they were stepping into uncharted territory. Lily adapted quickly, her intelligence proving to be as sharp as her determination. She learned how to use basic tools, tend to the chickens, and even drive the tractor after a few shaky attempts. Yet, despite her growing competence, there was always an air of fragility about her, as if she were holding herself together by sheer willpower. One afternoon, while Jack worked on repairing a broken fence post, Lily approached him hesitantly. In her hands, she held a thick biology textbook borrowed from the local library. "I've been reading," she said, showing him the open page. "About reproduction. About humans." Jack wiped sweat from his brow and glanced at the book. Diagrams of chromosomes and cell division stared back at him. "Yeah? What about it? I think I understand now," she continued, her voice tinged with excitement. "Your bodies, they are designed for this. For creating new life. But mine," her expression faltered. "Mine is not." Jack sighed, setting down his hammer. "That's what I've been trying to tell you, Lily. This isn't going to be easy. Hell, it might not even be possible. But science can help," she insisted. "There are ways, technology, medicine, that could bridge the gap. I am certain of it." He looked at her, seeing both the desperation and hope in her glowing eyes. "Even if we found a way, it wouldn't be cheap or simple. We'd need doctors, labs, equipment. And trust me, people would notice." Lily tilted her head thoughtfully. "Then we must find someone who can help us discreetly. Someone who understands secrets." Her words lingered in the air, planting a seed of doubt in Jack's mind. Who would willingly agree to such a bizarre request? Most people would laugh, or worse, call the authorities. But then, an idea struck him. Someone who might listen without judgment. Someone desperate enough to take a risk. 2 days later, Jack drove Lily into town under the cover of darkness. They parked outside a modest brick house surrounded by overgrown bushes and flickering porch lights. The sign above the door read, "Dr. Evelyn Hart, Veterinarian." "You sure about this?" Jack asked, glancing at Lily. "She treats animals, not aliens." "She heals," Lily replied firmly. "That is all that matters." Before Jack could protest further, she stepped out of the truck and walked toward the front door. Reluctantly, he followed, knocking twice before stepping back. A moment later, the door creaked open to reveal Dr. Evelyn Hart, a middle-aged woman with graying hair tied into a loose bun and glasses perched precariously on her nose. She blinked at them through tired eyes. Can I help you? She asked, her tone wary but polite. Evelyn, Jack began awkwardly. This is a friend of mine. She's got a problem. A big one. Evelyn raised an eyebrow, glancing at Lily. Doesn't everyone? Come inside. They followed her into a cozy living room cluttered with books and medical journals. As they sat down, Evelyn crossed her arms and fixed them with a skeptical stare. So, what's the issue? For a moment, Jack hesitated, unsure how to explain. But Lily leaned forward, her shimmering form dimmed to almost human levels. I require assistance, she said softly. To create life. To become whole. Evelyn blinked, clearly taken aback. Create life? You mean pregnancy? Yes, Lily confirmed. But my body is not compatible. I need your expertise to make it so. The veterinarian frowned deeply, leaning back in her chair. This is insane. Do you have any idea how complicated that is? Even assuming it's possible, which I highly doubt, it would require resources far beyond what I can offer. We're willing to try, Jack interjected. Anything. Just point us in the right direction. Evelyn studied them both carefully, her gaze lingering longest on Lily. There was something about the alien woman, an aura of sincerity, that made it hard to dismiss her outright. Finally, she sighed. All right. Let's say I believe you, and I'm not saying I do. What exactly are you hoping for? Miracle science? A magical solution? No magic, Lily said firmly. Only knowledge. Understanding. That is why I came here. Humans seek answers relentlessly. Surely, there is a way. Evelyn rubbed her temples, clearly torn. After a long pause, she nodded slowly. Fine. If you're serious about this, I'll do some research. Off the record, of course. But don't get your hopes up. Relief washed over Lily's face, and she bowed her head slightly. Thank you, Evelyn. I am grateful. As they left the house, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they had just crossed another invisible line. Whatever happened next, there was no turning back. Over the following weeks, Evelyn became their reluctant ally. She scoured scientific papers, consulted obscure contacts, and even experimented with samples Lily provided, strange, iridescent fluids that shimmered like liquid starlight. Progress was slow, frustrating, and often discouraging, but Lily remained steadfast. Meanwhile, Jack struggled with his own emotions. He admired Lily's courage and resilience, yet he couldn't ignore the nagging fear that they were playing with forces they didn't fully understand. What if something went wrong? What if the child, if it even happened, wasn't human? Or worse, what if it was? One evening, as they sat together in the kitchen, Lily reached across the table and placed her hand gently over his. You worry too much, she said softly. Fear will only hold you back. I'm not afraid, Jack snapped, pulling his hand away. I'm realistic. Do you even realize how dangerous this is? How many things could go wrong? Yes, she replied calmly. But I also know that staying empty is not living. Fear may guide caution, but it cannot dictate destiny. Her words struck a chord deep within him. For years, he had let fear rule his life, fear of loss, of failure, of moving forward. Maybe Lily was right. Maybe it was time to stop running from the unknown. I'm in, he said finally, meeting her gaze. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. Lily smiled, her glow brightening momentarily. Together. And with that promise, their journey took its next uncertain step. The weeks turned into months as Evelyn, Jack, and Lily worked tirelessly to bridge the gap between worlds. What started as a desperate hope slowly evolved into an intricate plan, a blend of science, ingenuity, and sheer determination. Yet, with each breakthrough came new challenges, testing their resolve in ways none of them could have anticipated. Evelyn's makeshift lab, set up in the basement of her home, became the epicenter of their efforts. Rows of test tubes, microscopes, and humming machines lined the walls, while stacks of medical journals and research papers cluttered every available surface. It was here that Lily spent most of her days, lying on an examination table or pacing anxiously as Evelyn analyzed data. "This isn't like treating a sick cow," Evelyn muttered one evening, rubbing her temples as she stared at a computer screen filled with complex genetic sequences. "We're talking about combining two completely different species. Hell, I'm not even sure if you are a species." "I am," Lily replied firmly from her seat nearby. "Just not yours." Jack leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching silently. He had grown accustomed to these late-night sessions, though they left him drained and uneasy. The more he learned about Lily's biology, the more alien she seemed, and yet, paradoxically, the more human too. Her vulnerability reminded him of his own struggles after losing his family, her courage inspiring him to push past his doubts. "All right," Evelyn said finally, turning away from the screen. "Based on what we've gathered so far, it might be possible to create a hybrid embryo using your DNA and Jack's. But there's no guarantee it'll survive, or that it won't reject both of you entirely." "What does that mean?" Jack asked, stepping forward. "Reject us? It means the body carrying the child might not recognize it as its own," Evelyn explained. "In humans, that can lead to complications like miscarriage or worse. For Lily," she trailed off, shaking her head, "we don't know. This has never been done before." Lily stood abruptly, her glow intensifying with emotion. "I will endure whatever is necessary. Pain, risk, it does not matter. I must try." Her words hung heavy in the air, silencing any further objections. They all knew the stakes, yet none of them could bring themselves to walk away. The procedure itself took place on a cold, rainy night. The storm outside mirrored the tension inside the lab, where every piece of equipment hummed with anticipation. Evelyn wore a sterile white coat, her hands steady despite the weight of what they were attempting. Jack sat beside Lily, holding her hand tightly as she lay on the examination table. "You ready for this?" he asked quietly, searching her face. She nodded, her expression calm but resolute. "Yes. No matter what happens, I am ready." Evelyn double-checked the instruments one last time before speaking. "All right, let's begin." For hours they worked in tense silence, the only sounds the soft beeping of monitors and the occasional murmur of instructions. Jack watched as Evelyn carefully combined samples of his and Lily's DNA, injecting the resulting mixture into Lily's body through a specialized device designed to mimic natural conception. It was a painstaking process, requiring precision and patience, but eventually it was done. "There," Evelyn said, stepping back with a weary sigh. "That's all we can do for now. We'll monitor closely over the next few weeks to see if anything takes hold." Lily closed her eyes, exhaling deeply. "Thank you, Evelyn." "Thank you, Jack." As they cleaned up and prepared to leave, Jack couldn't shake the feeling of unease gnawing at him. Despite the progress they'd made, the uncertainty loomed large. Would it work? Could it work? And if it did, what kind of life would they be bringing into the world? The waiting period was agonizing. Days stretched into weeks, during which Lily underwent regular checkups to track any changes in her body. At first, there was nothing, no sign of pregnancy, no indication that the experiment had succeeded. Doubt crept in, casting long shadows over their fragile optimism. Then, one morning, everything changed. Evelyn called them urgently to her lab, her voice trembling with excitement. When they arrived, she greeted them with wide eyes and a triumphant smile. "It worked," she announced, holding up a grainy ultrasound image. "There's something growing inside you, Lily. Something alive." Lily's hand flew to her mouth, tears welling in her luminous eyes. "Alive," she whispered, choking on the word. "It's real." Jack stared at the image, his heart pounding. A tiny flicker of movement marked the presence of a heartbeat, a life forming within Lily's shimmering form. For the first time since this journey began, he felt a spark of hope. But Evelyn's expression quickly sobered. "Don't celebrate just yet," she warned. "This is uncharted territory. The pregnancy could still fail, or worse, harm Lily. We need to proceed cautiously." "I understand," Lily said softly, clutching the ultrasound image like a lifeline. But for now, I feel whole. For the first time, I feel whole. Jack placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, offering what little comfort he could. We're in this together, Lily. Whatever comes next, we'll face it. As they left the lab that day, the rain had stopped, leaving behind a crisp, clear sky dotted with stars. For the first time in years, Jack allowed himself to imagine a future, one filled with uncertainty, yes, but also possibility. Together, they had taken the first step toward creating something extraordinary. And yet, deep down, he couldn't ignore the lingering question, at what cost? The days that followed the confirmation of Lily's pregnancy were a whirlwind of emotions, hope, fear, and an overwhelming sense of responsibility. For Jack, the reality of what they had undertaken began to settle in like a storm cloud hovering just out of reach. He found himself waking up in the middle of the night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if they were playing God, or worse, setting themselves up for disaster. Lily, on the other hand, seemed to radiate with newfound purpose. Her glow brightened subtly, as though the life growing inside her was feeding her very essence. She moved through their days with quiet determination, tending to the farm alongside Jack while carefully following Evelyn's instructions for maintaining her health. Yet, beneath her calm exterior, Jack could see traces of apprehension, a flicker of doubt whenever she thought no one was watching. One evening, as they sat together on the porch under a sky streaked with orange and pink hues, Jack finally voiced the question that had been gnawing at him. "Do you ever think about what happens after?" he asked, his voice low. "Once the baby's born, I mean." Lily turned to him, her luminous eyes reflecting the fading sunlight. "I think about it often," she admitted. "This child will be part of both our worlds. It will carry pieces of us, your humanity, my, whatever I am." "And what does that mean?" Jack pressed gently. "Will it have a soul? Will it even survive?" She hesitated, her fingers tracing the edge of the wooden railing. "I don't know," she said finally. "But I believe it will. This child is more than just biology, it's a connection. A bridge between emptiness and meaning. If nothing else, it will prove that I can exist beyond myself." Her words stirred something deep within Jack, a mix of admiration and unease. He admired her courage, her unwavering faith in the unknown, but he couldn't ignore the risks. What kind of world would this child grow up in? Would it belong anywhere? Meanwhile, Evelyn continued to monitor Lily's progress closely, her initial excitement giving way to mounting concerns. The hybrid pregnancy defied all conventional understanding of biology, presenting challenges that left even her seasoned expertise stretched thin. Each ultrasound revealed new anomalies, unusual growth patterns, irregular heartbeats, and structures that didn't align with either human or alien physiology. "It's adapting," Evelyn explained during one of their checkups, studying the latest scans intently. "Almost as if it's rewriting its own rules to survive. But that's not necessarily a good thing. Rapid adaptation can lead to instability." "What does that mean for Lily?" Jack asked, gripping the back of a chair tightly. "It means we're walking a tightrope," Evelyn replied grimly. "If the fetus continues to develop at this rate, it could put too much strain on her body. Worst case scenario." She trailed off, unwilling to finish the sentence. Lily, seated on the examination table, remained eerily calm. "Then so be it," she said softly. "I knew the risks when I chose this path. My survival is secondary to the child's." Jack spun around, anger flaring in his chest. "No, it's not. You're throwing your life away without thinking twice. Is that really worth it?" "It is to me," Lily shot back, her voice steady despite the intensity of his gaze. "You cannot understand what it's like to live without purpose, Jack. To feel hollow every moment of every day. This child gives me a reason to keep going, to fight for something greater than myself." Her words struck a nerve, dredging up memories Jack had tried so hard to bury. He thought of his late wife, the void her death had left behind, and the years he'd spent drifting aimlessly until Lily appeared. Wasn't she right, in a way? Didn't everyone need something to hold on to, something to make life meaningful? Before he could respond, Evelyn intervened, breaking the tension. "All right, enough. Arguing isn't going to help anyone. Let's focus on the next steps. We need to ensure Lily stays healthy while keeping a close eye on the fetus. That means regular checkups, dietary adjustments, and absolutely no stress. Easier said than done, Jack thought bitterly as they left the lab later that evening. Stress was becoming a constant companion, lurking in every shadow, whispering doubts into his ear. As the weeks passed, Lily's condition grew increasingly precarious. Strange symptoms began to manifest, sudden bursts of energy followed by debilitating fatigue, faint luminescent patterns appearing on her skin, and moments where she seemed almost transparent, as though her body were struggling to contain the life within her. One night, during a particularly violent storm, Lily collapsed in the kitchen while preparing dinner. Jack rushed to her side, panic gripping his heart as he called Evelyn in a frantic voice. "She's burning up," he said, holding Lily's trembling form against him. "Something's wrong!" By the time Evelyn arrived, Lily had regained consciousness but was visibly weaker. Her glow had dimmed significantly, replaced by an unsettling pallor. "I think the fetus is accelerating," Evelyn said grimly after examining her. "It's drawing more energy from her than her body can sustain. At this rate." "At this rate, what?" Jack demanded, his voice cracking. "At this rate, we might lose them both," Evelyn finished bluntly. The room fell silent, the weight of her words pressing down on them like a suffocating blanket. Lily reached out weakly, taking Jack's hand in hers. "You must promise me something," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of rain pounding against the windows. "If it comes to a choice, save the child." "No," Jack snapped, tears welling in his eyes. "I won't let you die, Lily. Not for this. Please," she begged, squeezing his hand with surprising strength. "This is why I came here. This is why I chose you. Trust me." For a long moment, Jack stared at her, torn between his desire to protect her and his understanding of her resolve. Finally, he nodded, his throat tight with emotion. "Okay. But only because it's what you want." Relief washed over Lily's face, and she closed her eyes, leaning into him. "Thank you, Jack. For everything." Over the next few days, Evelyn worked tirelessly to stabilize Lily, administering experimental treatments and monitoring her vitals around the clock. Slowly, Lily began to recover, her glow returning in faint pulses. Yet, the toll on her body was undeniable, and the looming threat of further complications cast a shadow over their fragile hope. Through it all, Jack stayed by her side, refusing to leave even for a moment. He read to her, held her hand, and shared stories of his past, memories of his wife, his son, and the life he had once taken for granted. In return, Lily spoke of her people, of the vast emptiness she had endured before finding him. "We are alike, you and I," she said one night, her voice soft but resolute. "Both searching for meaning in a world that often feels meaningless. Together, we've created something extraordinary. No matter what happens, I am grateful." Jack smiled faintly, brushing a strand of silvery hair from her face. "Me too, Lily. Me too." And as they sat together in the dim light of the farmhouse, surrounded by uncertainty and danger, Jack realized that their journey wasn't just about creating life, it was about finding redemption. For Lily, it was a chance to become whole. For him, it was a chance to heal. But the hardest part was yet to come. The final weeks of Lily's pregnancy passed in a blur of tension and anticipation. Her body, pushed to its limits by the rapidly developing hybrid child, grew increasingly fragile. Yet, her spirit remained unyielding, a beacon of determination that inspired both Jack and Evelyn, even as they wrestled with their own fears. Evelyn had set up a makeshift medical suite in the farmhouse living room, transforming it into a sterile environment equipped with monitors, oxygen tanks, and emergency supplies. She knew they were venturing into uncharted territory, where every decision could mean life or death. Despite her years of experience, she couldn't shake the feeling that this moment would define them all. Jack stayed by Lily's side constantly, his hands calloused from farm work now gentle as he helped her through bouts of pain. He read her favorite passages from books she'd grown fond of, played soft music on an old radio, and whispered words of encouragement whenever her strength wavered. "It's going to be okay," he said one evening, holding her hand tightly. "We're going to get through this." Lily smiled weakly, her glow flickering like candlelight in a draught. "I know we will, Jack. Because you're here." Then, one fateful night, the moment arrived. A sharp cry of pain echoed through the farmhouse, jolting Evelyn awake in the adjoining room. She rushed to Lily's side, finding her doubled over, clutching her abdomen. "It's time," Evelyn said firmly, checking Lily's vitals. "Get ready." Jack sprang into action, helping Lily onto the prepared bed while Evelyn prepped the equipment. The air was thick with urgency, every breath heavy with the weight of what they were about to face. For hours, they labored together. Lily's cries filled the room, each contraction visibly straining her already weakened body. Evelyn guided her through the process, her voice steady but tinged with concern. Jack held Lily's hand throughout, offering quiet reassurance even as sweat dripped down his face. "You're doing amazing," he murmured, brushing hair from her forehead. "Just a little longer." But it wasn't just Lily who struggled. The hybrid child within her resisted the natural birthing process, its alien biology clashing with human anatomy. Evelyn worked tirelessly, adjusting medications and monitoring vitals, her brow furrowed in concentration. "This isn't going to work," she muttered at one point, glancing nervously at the monitors. "The baby's heartbeat is erratic. We may need to intervene surgically." "No," Lily gasped, gripping Jack's hand tighter. "No surgery. Please. Let me finish this." "Lily, you're risking your life," Jack protested, panic rising in his chest. "I don't care," she replied fiercely, tears streaming down her face. "This is my choice. My purpose." Evelyn hesitated, torn between medical ethics and respecting Lily's wishes. Finally, she nodded grimly. "All right. But if things go south, I'm stepping in." The next hour felt like an eternity. With every push, Lily seemed to fade further, her glow dimming dangerously low. Jack's heart ached as he watched her endure unimaginable pain, his mind racing with worst-case scenarios. What if they lost her? What if the child didn't survive? And then, suddenly, a cry pierced the air, a sound unlike anything any of them had ever heard. It was neither fully human nor entirely alien, but something in between, raw, primal, and alive. Evelyn quickly wrapped the newborn in a blanket, her hands trembling as she examined the tiny being. The child's skin shimmered faintly, like starlight captured in flesh, and its eyes, wide and luminous, seemed to hold galaxies within them. "It's beautiful," Evelyn whispered, handing the baby to Lily. Lily cradled the child against her chest, tears streaming down her face as she gazed at the miracle she had brought into existence. "Hello, little one," she murmured, her voice choked with emotion. "You are my soul." Jack stood frozen, overwhelmed by the sight before him. The child was real, a living, breathing testament to everything they had fought for. Yet, as he looked at Lily, he saw how close she had come to the edge. Her glow was nearly gone, her body frail and translucent. "Lily," he began, his voice breaking. She turned to him, her expression serene despite her obvious exhaustion. "I did it, Jack. I became whole." Before he could respond, her form began to flicker, fading like morning mist under sunlight. Evelyn stepped forward urgently, trying to stabilize her, but it was too late. With a final, peaceful smile, Lily vanished, leaving only the faint scent of stardust in the air. The room fell silent, save for the soft cooing of the infant. Jack sank to his knees, grief washing over him in waves. He had known the risks, but losing Lily still felt like losing a part of himself. Evelyn placed a comforting hand on his shoulder, her own eyes wet with unshed tears. "She gave everything for that child," Evelyn said softly. "Her sacrifice means something, Jack. Don't let it be in vain." Jack nodded, swallowing hard as he approached the baby. He reached out tentatively, touching its tiny hand. To his surprise, the child grasped his finger firmly, its grip surprisingly strong. "What do we do now?" he asked, looking up at Evelyn. "We raise it," she replied simply. Together. This child is a bridge between worlds, Jack. It deserves a chance to live, to discover who it is. As dawn broke over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and pink, Jack made a silent promise to Lily. He would honor her sacrifice by giving the child the love and care it needed. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he would face them head-on, for Lily, for the child, and for the hope they represented. In that moment, amidst the sorrow and uncertainty, Jack found a new purpose. And as the sun rose higher, casting light over the fields and forests, it felt like the beginning of something extraordinary.